but if you tell us where the body is, I'll make sure Big Butch isn't going to come into your cell.
This podcast contains graphic descriptions that some listeners may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. Now, with that being said, welcome to the Mortal Musings podcast.
Right, let's do this.
It's actually quite a fitting start of this one after our oddity in the last episode.
Why?
Well, Neil, do you remember that time we went to Dublin Zoo?
Yeah.
And in Dublin Zoo, there's like a section where it's more like farmyard animals.
Yeah.
You got your little piggies.
It's usually at the start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember when we came around the corner and you nearly shit yourself?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we were going around, we're like, oh, look, little piggies, little tails in them. Aren't they lovely? Came around the corner and Neil, he was fucking two-stepping. Like, I don't know, what do you describe it as?
I got myself in front of you.
Yeah, he went in front of me and was like, oh, and put his arm over, dove back, pushed me back. And I was like, what the fuck's going on?
And shouted, it's got out.
Yeah, so Neil was panicked because an animal had gotten out, yeah?
Yeah.
And which I don't know what damage you thought a goat would do, but you were worried anyway.
It was a sheep.
Or a sheep, okay? But he was worried anyway. It turns out it was like one of those little, those toy things that kids sit on that they kind of rock. They're on a big spring and kids sit on them.
I don't think that one was on a spring, but no, right. We walked around the corner.
Yeah.
And that's how fast I reacted because it was just in the corner of my eye. Mm. I saw a gate open and an animal just stood there looking at me. I didn't even clock, but it was a sheep.
Yeah.
And I screamed, it's got out, and dove in front of you.
Mm.
So I was a hero, really.
I think, yeah, there's two different ways to look at it. There's your reaction times are good, you're fast thinking, or you're someone who's very jumpy and you jump to a conclusion immediately.
Yeah.
It's the wrong one, but you know.
But yeah, no, I nearly had a heart attack.
Yeah. That was a good day, wasn't it?
Because in my imagination, it was a gorilla.
I couldn't, right. The fucking gorilla. Immediately, you made me jump because I was like, what? I didn't see anything. And then I realised what you were looking at and I didn't want to make you feel bad, but I couldn't. I was cracking up, for fuck's sake. But I don't know if we've ever said it on the podcast, but my experience with a ram when I was little.
No.
Okay, so when I was 3, I think, I have family who own a farm. Sheeps and all sorts. I say all sorts, I think pretty much just sheep.
She comes from money.
But I don't come from money. But we're down on the farm visiting and, the people who are meant to be, keeping an eye on me, looking after me, guardians, weren't. So I hopped a fence, climbed in and went over to a ram. You know them fuckers with the big curly horns?
Yeah, I know what a ram is.
They'll kill you?
Yeah, I know what a ram is.
I went in and apparently this fucker was particularly temperamental. And I went over and just patted him on the head.
As you do.
Yeah. Now, I'm a bit jumpy around animals myself. I'm a bit wary. Give them space.
Yeah.
I don't need to be getting into their
You don't even like horses.
No, I'm very nervous of them. But yeah, I went over, patted it on the head, and then my great uncle looked over and noticed that I was in there, and they were like, we need to get her out or she's going to be killed. So apparently, I think it was 4 or 5 of them all crept in around to try and grab me and get me out of there before I got fucking gored by a ram.
So you could have been in the statistics of death by ram.
Yes, very easily. I find it so funny that I did that because, like I said, I'm wary of animals. I like them, but, you give each other some fucking space, have a bit of respect.
Yeah.
Or I'm going around patting them on the fucking head.
Huh.
I have to have a word with my mother. Why did she tried to snuff me out at 3 years of age?
At least if an animal did get out of Dublin Zoo, I would dive in front of you and notice what it is and then leg it.
Yeah. Yes. Right, so we're back for part 2.
Yeah.
When last we left you, Venus...
A new fella were on the scene.
Yes, so Venus Stewart was missing. Her family and pretty much everyone around was very suspicious of her husband, Doug Stewart. There's a bit of confusion as to his alibi, which was then found out that he had someone else involved. And that someone else was Ricky Spencer, who was a 20-year-old college student living in Delaware with his parents. So, to jump back into it, like we said...
So, before you even get into that lad might not even know the severity of it. He's a student. He's probably seeing it as, someone's paying me 50 quid to just go in there and hand something in.
Well, we'll get into it. So,
this is lover.
Oh. It could have been, but it wasn't. So, Ricky Spencer, they go to his gaff, or his parents' gaff, and they ask him to come to the police station. He seems shy, very quiet, but he was happy enough to talk to them. They're wondering, what in the name of fuck is the connection between this 20-year-old kid and a married father of 2?
So they were riding?
No, they weren't.
Oh.
So they ask him, how do you know Doug? And he tells them that they met on Xbox Live.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about the gaming side.
He also tells them that he had known Doug for about a year and a half at this point. He tells them that they had met in person during Ricky's spring break on the 1st of April 2010.
Spring break, woo woo!
Do you know, when I was writing that, I was like, I know it. I don't even need to put a trigger in for him to bait him to say it. Yes, so during Ricky's spring break of 2010, that's when they met, and Doug had invited Ricky to stay with him in Virginia during this time. So Ricky says to the police, quote, he was a chill guy, but it was just awkward, you know, because he's like close to his 30s and I'm like in my 20s. So Ricky's 20, Doug is 29.
Yeah.
He's like so totally close to his 30s. They ask Ricky when was the last time that he had seen Doug. He tells them that the last time he saw Doug was during the spring break. They knew this wasn't true, based on the timeline through the phone records.
What are you lying for, Ricky? What are you lying for?
On the 25th of April, the morning before Venus disappeared, Ricky's phone pinged in Bear, Delaware. Doug and Ricky had been on the phone to each other, and then they had both turned their phones off. But Ricky had briefly turned his phone back on.
Amateur.
I know. What a fool.
Why didn't they get burner phones?
Oh, well,
that's a common knowledge.
We'll touch on a fucking burner phone as well. Don't worry about that. So Ricky briefly turned his phone back on. And can you guess where the phone pinged this time?
Bear, Delaware.
No.
Michigan.
No. Just north of Doug's apartment.
Yeah, and he lives in Michigan.
No.
Oh no, that was after he moved to Michigan, didn't he?
You lost the run of yourself with the 3-week timeline. So with this, Ricky's kind of fudging the truth a bit. The police start to cut to the chase. They don't want to hear any more of this round the houses bullshit. Police tell Ricky that they know Doug abducted and killed his wife, and that someone had gone to the lawyers to pay a bill for him. Ricky is still being a bit evasive. He tells police that Doug told him later that his wife was missing, and that he had Googled Doug after the fact, and once he had seen the reports as to Doug's involvement, that was the point that he chose to distance himself from him. After a little bit of back and forth, Ricky cops on, and he becomes a bit more forthcoming with what he really knew. He tells police that Doug had told him that he had to, quote, take care of business in Michigan. They asked Ricky if Doug had specifically said what this business was that he needed to attend to. Ricky told them it was to see his wife. Quote, to hide her, to get rid of her. So with that, they're like, got him.
Yeah.
Done. We've got this fucking kid who's got the records, the phone calls and all that.
Shoot him.
What?
Shoot him.
Well, no, they're not going to do that. They're going to go to trial. Yeah, they've got Ricky.
Yeah.
He's a witness to this. Other evidence that they now have included CCTV footage that showed Doug enter the Walmart in Van Wert and picking up the items from the receipt.
Tarp, shovel.
Hat and gloves.
Hat and gloves.
The security guard and the cashier from that store also recognised him and could put him at the scene.
I never believed that.
What do you mean?
If they came in and they were like, we're looking for this guy, he had a receipt, he came into this shop a week ago and showed me a photo, I'd be like, no fucking idea. It was a week ago. This is Walmart.
Yeah, so maybe the security guard, they're saying they saw him, I'll take their word for it. But the cashier particularly remembered him because she said about his attitude. He was kind of a bit rude. She had remembered that he'd asked if they had any limes, which is now assumed he was going to use them to mask the smell of decomposition.
Beef.
Don't
they say you get raw meat?
Do they?
I don't know.
Have you just made that up?
Possibly. Coffee. I know that's one to mask smell.
So another fuck up of Doug's, he bought a burner phone, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
But he paid for it with a fucking credit card.
No, you don't do that.
No, he's a stupid fucking prick. I mean, it kind of defeats the purpose.
Yes.
You know what I mean. The fingerprints that they were able to get from the tarp. Yep, you guessed it. They came back and they matched Doug as well.
Yeah.
So Doug is arrested and charged with open murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree premeditated murder. Venus was declared dead, and prosecutors were preparing for a first-degree murder case without a body. It's never going to be an easy feat, is it? In January 2011, Doug's trial begins in the St. Joseph County District Court. More than 70 witnesses were expected to testify.
Why are they getting 70?
They just have that many from people who've seen him about.
Okay.
Doug pleads not guilty and states that he's surprised that he was even arrested.
See, if you were driving to Michigan, wouldn't you have to go over like toll bridges and stuff?
I don't know their road network.
I'd have thought they'd have toll bridges.
Maybe you're able to avoid them going certain, because they said the direct route that he would have went. So if they were thinking...
I thought like on borders from state to state would have tolls.
I don't think it's necessarily state to state. I don't think it really works like that.
Oh. Because that'd be an easy way to catch people out. There he is driving into Michigan.
Well, like you said, obviously that's a good way to track someone.
Yeah.
But I didn't hear any of that mentioned, so I assumed he must have avoided any possible tolls.
Sort it out, America.
Now, like we mentioned, the prosecution had their work cut out for them, to try and get a conviction without a body. While in recess, Doug was said to have been fairly laid back and chit-chatted away. Like, none of this was really a big deal.
Recess, isn't that to do with school?
No, recess is that they could take 5-10 minutes, whatever.
Yeah, it's break at school, isn't it?
In America, I think they say recess. We don't really say that over here. But essentially, yeah, they took a quick break. And yeah.
Coffee break? Fag break?
Yes. Doug didn't seem to think any of this was... He kind of... this is a glitch.
Yeah.
They're not going to get me. The first officer on the scene the day of the murder, he testified that as soon as he arrived, he was immediately thinking something was seriously wrong. Venus's parents also testified. They wanted to show the reality of Venus and the family that she had come from. Not that she was some reckless, absent mother, like Doug was so desperate to portray her as. The cashier who had worked at the Walmart, who had sold the items to Doug, she also testified. And bless her, when she was testifying, she was asked to identify Doug. She kind of pauses and she says, "I'm so nervous," before kind of awkwardly pointing at him and describing what he's wearing. She was incredibly uncomfortable. She looked terrified.
What she thinks going to happen to her?
It's still...
It's that man over there.
I know. We need like the kind of confidence of, do you remember Cora from Richard Speck?
Yeah.
That man.
Yeah.
She was fucking brilliant. A resident from the same apartment building where Doug had lived told the court that he had seen Doug with scratches and bruising along his neck, forearms and legs.
Been at it with a kangaroo. At it as in fighting.
Yeah. No. Yes. Now, Ricky is also called to the stand, and his testimony is crucial to securing a conviction. And when I tell you, Ricky is leaving nothing out. He is spilling the fucking tea.
Oh, fair play.
Yes. He was like...
You were being a little prick at first.
Yes. But he's also... I'm not in any way justifying his behaviour, but he's a 20-year-old fucking kid.
Yeah.
You know...
That's what I mean. You called him a man in part one. It's like, no, it's a boy.
On paper, legally speaking, he's a man, but he's a 20-year-old kid who spends his time playing Xbox.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So speaking of Xbox, Ricky told the court that he and Doug would play Xbox for 6 to 10 hours a day.
I probably...
Yes, but you don't also have a wife who's working and then coming home to a shit show of a house and the kids fucking not taking care of property.
Probably would anyway.
Well, you're just as much of a prick as Doug then. Ricky would even say that he would have considered Doug to have been his best friend. Someone he had possibly looked up to from his time spent in the Marines. Although it is thought that Doug may have slightly embellished when telling Ricky of his time spent in the Marines.
Oh.
Apparently he was a sniper and he was this and he was that, he was...
And he was a cook.
Probably, yeah. During their time spent together during spring break, they went to Busch Gardens, played Xbox and drank.
What's Busch Gardens?
I don't know. I always hear it mentioned.
Is it a stadium?
I don't know what it is. I think it's like a theme park. Is it a theme park?
But they played Xbox there.
No. They played Xbox and also went to Busch Gardens. I think it's a theme park.
It sounds like a baseball stadium.
During this time, Doug also confided in Ricky about the troubles in his marriage. He tells Ricky that Venus was an abusive mother. He told Ricky in order to stop this, he was going to have to kill her. Now, Ricky initially was like, fuck off, I don't want to hear this. Like,
yeah,
that's a load of shite. You're just, you're
being
what are you
lying for?
The problem is, Doug kept in his ear, filling his head with lies about how Venus was actually beating their eldest daughter. Over time, he started to convince Ricky that if he didn't do something, his kids would be in danger. Doug would even go as far as to demonstrate how he planned to kill Venus. Strangulation by chokehold. He tells Ricky, if you do it for 10 seconds, they pass out. You do it for 30 seconds, they're no longer living.
I thought it was longer than 30.
Well, I'll listen to Doug. Well, he's the Marine.
Yeah.
Ricky is coached on how to avoid CCTV while posing as Doug. Ricky would park in Doug's parking space, stay in his apartment, use his credit card to buy food, and he would even call into work sick as Doug during this time.
Oh, yeah, because they won't think about it because they'd be like, you don't sound like Doug. Yeah, I'm not well.
Yeah. Now, Ricky was fucking brilliant on the stand. He remembered so much detail. But through all of this, Doug is just sat there like a smug little shit. He just doesn't care.
Yeah.
He thinks this is a blip. Now, through the investigation, we find out that there was a previous attempt to abduct Venus. As Doug was making his way to Michigan, he had been pulled over for weaving in and out of lanes, which there was dash cam footage of this stop. So because he had been stopped, Doug decided to head back home and regroup. So
he was already...
Exactly. This isn't some kind of... Well, it couldn't have been with the level of premeditation anyway, but it's not even some moment of madness.
Yeah.
You're literally like, oh, failed, try again.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, but if you're planning on committing a crime, just drive by the law. Drive sensibly.
Yes. Actually, no, don't be giving them tips. On the morning that Venus was murdered, Doug parked in a field across from Venus's parents' house, keeping watch. He then snuck up to the house, hiding behind a woodpile. He then called the home, pretending to be a delivery driver for USPS.
What's this?
And that he
Fucking
had-
King of Queens? Doug.
Oh, shit, yeah. Doug, the delivery guy. But no, he was with the United States Postal Service, not, was it UPS?
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, he pretended to be a delivery driver and said that he had a parcel for her. Once outside, Doug grabs Venus and puts her in a chokehold until she falls unconscious. He said that once she'd regained consciousness, she had said something that had angered Doug, causing him to, quote, lose it, and that is when he killed her.
She probably said, "Is that all you got? You little bitch."
He then takes Venus to a wooded area that he is already familiar with. But when Doug arrives to the area, which he had already dug a hole in preparation...
You can't get more pre-med than that.
Exactly. There was already people searching the area, so he had to find another spot. Now, because Ricky's account was so important for the prosecution, of course the defence tried to attack his character.
Yeah.
Starting with his gamer tag. I can't say for definite what it was. I tried looking up and I couldn't get a full answer.
Mm-hmm.
But listening through bleeped audio, I'm pretty sure it was dark bukkake. And if you know, you know. If you don't, it's a sexually explicit... it's a sex act. Not the most appropriate.
Golden shower.
No.
Oh.
So, look, not a great one, but I've seen a lot of shit during my time gaming. And tell you, there's a lot of fucking idiots out there with stupid names.
Mm-hmm.
It's just some dopey young lad. It doesn't,
Yeah.
you know. Now, they also tried to mention the fact that Ricky had lied to his parents about where he was over spring break. But again, I mean, he's a 20-year-old on spring break. They tend to do that.
Yeah.
In return for his testimony, Ricky was given a plea deal. He would plead guilty to manslaughter and serve a year in jail. Understandably, Venus's family were not happy about this. They felt that he should have at least served 10 years. How do you feel about that?
How is it manslaughter?
Well, he facilitated the murder.
Yeah.
But he didn't actually, you know, it's a hard one. Basically, the prosecution desperately needed Ricky's cooperation in this. If they didn't have Ricky, they didn't really have a case. And Ricky, I don't think in any way was a threat to the public.
Maybe 6 year.
Yeah, no, I definitely think he should have got a heftier sentence. Yeah. But it's kind of like the lesser of two evils. You know, if you're looking at it from the prosecution's point of view.
So parents wanted 10 year. So what about lock him up for 6 years and then 4-year probation?
Mm. Well, I mean, look, I do think it sounds hard to reason what he'd done, but he had been led to believe that Venus was a dangerous person. Yeah. She was hurting children. He was just a very naive, easily led
idiot
young lad. Yeah. The prosecution also believed that Doug would have followed through with his plan one way or another. He didn't need Ricky. It could have been anyone.
Yeah.
Doug, on the other hand, he said that Ricky's account was a load of shite.
He would do.
Well, he also stated that Ricky had essentially invited himself to Doug's home during spring break. I mean, give it up, Doug.
Yeah.
You're buggered. On the 11th of March, after 3 hours, a jury found Doug guilty of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Quote, "All I have to say is, I'm innocent. I did not do these crimes. I asked police to continue looking for my wife. If not for me, my children need to know what happened to their mother."
Tell them then.
He's such a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Now, with this sentence, there's one glaringly obvious issue. There's still no body.
Mm.
And because of the severity of his sentence, there's really no incentive for Doug to tell them where Venus is.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's what happened. But eventually, Doug wouldn't...
Don't you think, right? I know this sounds bad, right? This is going to sound bad, but hear me out. So in a case like this, we know stuff what goes on in prison isn't very nice.
No.
So why can't cops say to him, look, you're going down, but if you tell us where the body is, I'll make sure Big Butch isn't going to come into your cell.
Well, it's funny you should say that, Neil, because you're on the right wavelength here. Not about Big Butch. Leave him out of this. He's nothing to do with it.
Raymond the bastard.
So, eventually, Doug would admit to the murder of his wife Venus, the mother of his children. And it wasn't until 2018 when Doug decided to tell the police where he had hidden the body. After some time had gone by, and the dust had settled a bit, Doug's family reconnected with Venus's family. It was actually Doug's sister and father who had apparently convinced him to finally own up and take responsibility for his actions. Speaking with the media, Doug said, quote, "When I tell you the story, it is going to make me a monster. I am okay with this because that's what I was 8 years ago. The story is going to make me look bad. I was wretched, cold, and calculated. What started out as a fantasy slowly turned into planning." That's fucking dark, isn't it? So after 8 years, Doug agrees to tell them where Venus's body was. As long as they agreed to give Doug a few privileges while he was in prison.
Okay.
Can he take a guess what one of his requests was?
Xbox.
Yes. He requested an Xbox for his unit. I think gaming has got you into enough trouble, Douglas, you know? He also requested supervised release in the future for when his parents passed, for their funerals, to be able to attend.
You know what I'd have done? Yep, you can get an Xbox. You never asked for a telly.
Yeah. Have fun with your block of plastic. Now, the request was denied for supervised release, but they agreed to the Xbox. But with no internet access and, of course, no violent video games.
Yeah, Crash Bandicoot and all that.
I think they were getting like pretty much just like Madden and, what is it?
That'd be dangerous in prison.
Do you think?
I've seen fights kick off in people's bedrooms over FIFA.
As far as I know, it was all like sporting games.
Yeah.
As far as I know.
That's bad.
Yeah. Yeah, people can get a bit upset.
It should be Super Mario, Sonic, Crash Bandicoot.
Oh, do you know about that with Mario Kart? Now, it was also clearly stated that, quote, "The minute Doug Stewart doesn't do what he's supposed to do as a prisoner, those things can be taken away by the prison instantly."
I would have. As soon as he said where the body were, take it all. Fuck him. And then send Butch in. And Raymond the bastard.
On Monday, the 22nd of October, 2018, Doug leads police to where he had buried Venus's body. He had placed 2 stumps as a marker, should he need to return. I hate that bit, that creeps me out as well.
Why? Why is that bit creep you out?
It's like the leaving the marker thing. It's like, like the premeditation thing. It's like you still need to know where that is.
Yeah.
In case something happens, I got to, like the notion of you moving, like say a 3-year-old corpse.
Yeah.
Fuck you. Quote, "He walked the detectives right to where it was. And there it was. He really showed no emotion. He was pretty much matter of fact."
But before he was like 8 years ago, I was a different person.
Well,
but it's clearly the same now.
Yes. So
he just wants his Xbox.
At his trial, he's telling the police to use more resources on a wild goose chase. He knows she's gone.
Yeah.
And do it for my kids. It's like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Prick. Venus's remains would later be positively identified through dental records. Doug had wrapped Venus's body in a tarp and buried her in a 5-foot deep hole in a wooded area in Kalamazoo, about 15 minutes from her parents' home.
Kalamazoo?
Kalamazoo again. I mean, this also goes to show the level of premeditation. A 5-foot hole. You're not digging that too quickly, are you? As for Doug finally coming forward with this information, I don't believe that Doug had some kind of epiphany. I believe that he had run out of appeals, and judging from the fact that he used this extremely...
He wanted his Xbox?
Well, I mean, he used this information as leverage to obtain perks, like you just said. He knew what he was doing.
Do you know what they should have done? scratched every fucking disc.
Yeah. Was doing this so your daughters could have the peace to know where their mother is, not enough of a reason. He went from completely denying any involvement, calling witnesses liars, to then talking about his involvement in a hypothetical manner, and eventually admitting to murder. He was basically kind of testing the waters and,
Acting the bollocks.
Exactly. Sadly, Venus's father, Larry, passed away before her body would be found. But the family did have a grave and headstone ready for her. On the 15th of December 2018, Venus was laid to rest next to her father at the Leonidas Cemetery. And that is the case of the abduction and murder of Venus Stewart.
Well, he's a bastard.
It really is. It's the fucking slimy kind of nature of him.
All he wanted was an Xbox.
Did you see the theme? It just kept coming back in with that fucking Xbox.
Yeah.
Even now.
Yeah. Needs to
Fucking
grow
hell,
up.
Doug.
Needs to grow up. Like, serve your time. Avoid Butch.
There's a picture of him. Like a picture of him in prison. Let me show you Doug, and then let me show you this picture of him in prison. Creepy shit. So Neil's just had a look at Doug Stewart. For anyone who's unfamiliar, Doug is kind of like clean-cut, all-American guy. And then a few years later in prison...
His head's upside down.
He's wronging.
Butch has had it on him.
Fucking wronging.
Butch has been a bit rough. And now his head's upside down.
What did you think of that one? Was it...
He just wasted so much time and money to just think he were going to get away with it when he wasn't.
Tell you what really annoyed me about it.
But this would have been solved a lot quicker if they had toll bridges.
Yes. I was going to say, tell you what annoys me about it is how tit for tat he seemed. Yeah. Venus would like file a report or something. He's like, well, actually, she's abusing me. Now, look, I don't know what the situation was. If she had ever gotten physical, but it seemed very, if she did something, well, I'm going to get you back.
Yeah.
There's retaliation. Even the custody of the children. You clearly didn't give a fuck about your kids to not let them have that knowledge.
Yeah.
And that peace of mind. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Oxygen thief.
So, oddity?
Yeah.
So, we're going to talk about Diogo Alves. Are you familiar, Neil?
No. Why are you even asking?
So, Diogo Alves was a serial killer and robber who was active during the 1830s in Lisbon, Portugal. So, what he would do was rob the poor as they walked home from work at night. And where he would choose to accost these people was at the aqueduct. After he'd attacked them, he would then throw their bodies over the edge, which was a 65-metre drop, thus making it look like a suicide.
Yeah.
Now, the reason he was able to get away with this for so long was because of the economic and political climate. It was not great. So it was just kind of accepted that these people had chosen to end their lives.
Yeah.
His crimes would eventually earn him the moniker of the Aqueduct Murderer. But it wasn't until he was arrested in 1939 for the murder of Dr. Pedro de Andrade and his family in their home that he was convicted of murder and sentenced to death. He was hanged on the 19th of February 1941.
So he moved from making it look like suicide to doing it in people's homes?
Yeah, I mean, he got a bit sloppy, is the problem. Now, the other thing about him is he's thought to have murdered over 70 people, maybe even reaching numbers as high as 100 or just over 100. These are unproven, but if it's anywhere near that, fucking hell. It's quite a high number, especially given his age. He was only 30 or 31 at the time of his death.
Oh, shit.
He was busy.
Yeah.
He was active. Of course, we all want to know what makes the worst of the worst tick. So, after his death, Diogo's head was removed and preserved with the intention of dissecting and studying his brain. Now, just to throw this in for good measure, Diogo had also suffered a head injury as a child. This was after falling from a horse, which earned him the nickname Pancada, which means blow.
What?
Yeah. Pancada, as in a blow to the head.
Yeah.
Why would you nickname your child that? It's a bit shit. Well, you Gotta watch out for that head trauma.
I've heard. Repeatedly.
So, I mean, yeah, let's have a look at his head. Let's see what's going on in there.
Yeah.
For some reason, I've no idea why, Diogo's brain never ended up being dissected. So now Diogo's severed head is just bobbing about in a formaldehyde solution in the University of Lisbon's Faculty of Medicine to this day.
Oh.
Yes, this serial killer's head is just in a glass jar.
Yeah.
Hanging about.
Like something you'd see in an horror film.
Yes. You can look it up. There's pictures of it, I'm telling you. This came up. I can't remember where I saw it. And I was like, hang on. Is this fake? Did this really fucking happen?
Had you heard of the killer before?
No.
So what are they doing with it?
It's just there. I think they're just keeping it as some type of an oddity now at this point.
Well, it's working.
It got on to our oddities. So, I mean, they've made it. Huh? How's that grab you?
Fucking weirdos, the lot of them.
Who?
Like them, the fucking universities and stuff.
Don't you think it's interesting that it could be preserved and kept for that long, though?
No, like, why can't you have something nice on the shelf, like a fucking vase with flowers in? Why does it have to be a jar with an head in it?
Well, it's a university, and they're going to be studying medicine there.
But they're not studying it. They're not doing anything with it.
I might poke it with a pen every once in a while.
I'm sick of it. It's just fucking... There's no need for it. Like
you said, don't think that's interesting?
They should be cutting into his brain and looking at his brain, like they did with Gacy.
Well, I don't know why they didn't. I don't know what actually stopped them.
Because they thought, do you know what would look nice on my mantelpiece?
There you go. There he is. Don't like that, no?
It's fucking grim.
Is that a nightmare tonight? Fucking
It looks
grim.
like Michael Myers.
It does a bit.
With mask on.
Yeah. So to sum up, give me one word for that oddity.
Actually,
You can use a couple words.
Waste of space on the mantelpiece.
Thank you so much for listening. Find us on Patreon, TikTok, Facebook and Instagram. If you have a case suggestion or maybe even your own story, email us at mortalmusingspodcast@gmail.com.